Hello, hello. We are late as usual, but we are back. I really hope that everybody can hear me because honestly, I have no idea what the hell is going on today. Unfortunately, Rumble Studio does not like me for whatever reason. So on my laptop version, I am unable to work my camera. I'm unable to turn on my microphone, and it just will not work at all on the laptop. So if there is anybody in the chat that can tell me if you can hear us, is there anybody out there? Please let us know during the length of this show. Tonight is Miss Amanda's big night. She is going to be cooking pizza for the family, and I am super excited because this is Amanda's homemade recipe. So, all of the Rumble issues aside, we hope to get a really, really good meal out of the deal, if nothing else. But we're also going to be chit chatting about some parenting problems in America and some of the issues that we are dealing with when it comes to bad parents and the state coming in and taking your children from you due to a slight or a negligence charge, as it were, in the case that we would talk about tonight. But what we're going to start with is Miss Amanda's delicious dish. Do you want to give us a real quick rundown of what you're cooking for us tonight, ma'am?
Yeah, I call it French dip pizza. So basically, it's your classic French dip sandwich, just in pizza form, and you dip the pizza instead of a sandwich. So pretty straightforward, classic ingredients. But I am using some cheats. So like if I were to have made a beef roast, this may be something I would do with some of the leftovers, right? So that's the idea of this recipe. But because I have not done such a thing, we're going to be using deli meat. So there's a lot of wiggle room because this is just basically like building a sandwich just in pizza form. So if you don't like something, take it out. If you do like something, put it in. I'm going to use garlic because I don't feel like mincing fresh garlic. You can use horseradish. I don't include that in the recipe that I provided, but it's obviously something you can add into the onion paste. So yeah, there's lots of play here because it is just cooking. So yeah, we're gonna.
That's awesome.
I went ahead and made the dough though because it's very loud and it takes about a minute and a half for it to do in the food processor, and I could not figure out how I was going to like just fill the time with like silence on my end. So
we know I'm good for chit chatting.
The basic process there is I take a cup of cottage cheese. You want to use full fat, and put it in my food processor, which has a plastic blade for dough, like cookie dough and whatnot. And that's what the consistency of this is. So blend that till it's smooth. Basically, you're just looking to remove the larger curds so that you're not ending up with little speckles. Is it necessary? No. Is it aesthetic? Yes. Add in about, it calls for 1 to 1 on the flour, but I end up using almost 2 cups of flour. So on the recipe, I think I put 2 cups. But yeah, so you want to have enough flour to make it like a cookie dough consistency. Think of like chocolate chip cookie dough. And if it's not that consistency, continue to add flour until you get there. It is still going to be very sticky, and we're going to have to dump it out onto a flour surface. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and start these onions because they need to caramelize. So rant away.
Excellent. Now I can't hear you.
Oh, no. You lost me. I'm just going to continue to keep talking.
With a little bit of luck. Yeah. There we go. Excellent. Okay. Yes.
So just adding these onions. Added some diced onions. You can use whatever kind you like. I have yellow, so that's what's happening. But white, red, whatever.
Excellent.
And then you just want to put that in a little bit of oil and get it on to caramelize. Trusty
Wonderful.
stir here.
Well,
And there we go. We'll let that
while
sit
you
until it's done.
I say, while you do that in the background, I would like to direct our attention to the first case on our list. And I think that everybody's going to be quite familiar with this one. This is the Washington State case. There is a $20,000 reward as of right now for a Travis Decker who is being suspected of suffocating his three children on a camping trip. The gentleman took them to a campground near Washington, and his 9-year-old, 8-year-old, and 5-year-old were unalived at approximately 5 p.m. on Friday, according to the Wenatchee Police Department. And there is currently a manhunt for the father in this particular case. They said that they found some plastic bags, some zip ties, and there were handprints of blood and lots of evidence left at the scene, kind of dictating what had happened. But out of curiosity, do you think there's a possibility that perhaps this man also met a terrible end? That there was another person involved in this?
It is possible. Yeah, and I know that they're making much of his mental health and pre-existing involvement with DCF and things like that. Um, custody arrangements are never exactly cut and dry. I'm not sure, with him being a survivalist and the location in which they went missing, lends me to think that he's probably on the run versus have been, abducted himself or, I think if it was just a straightforward murder, that he would also be on location. So that's kind of strange, but I think in today's age, we can't rule anything out.
Yeah, I think with this particular case, what really bothers me is the harping on the mental health of this gentleman. And, tonight's episode, I really kind of wanted to focus on the state's involvement with parents and parenting, because I feel like you and I are both on the same page, being scared of the state stepping in at some point and
Absolutely.
dictating
fear. We
everything.
We worry about like our children drowning or, coming into some contact with something lethal in the house or outside. But no, the biggest fear real parents have is the state's interference.
Yeah, and when they start with the mental health awareness and driving home the mental issues of parents. Now, particularly in this case, if we go with the assumption that he's committed these terrible crimes, there is something to be said about the ability of a disturbed individual to care for children. And then, the next step is going to be whether or not they should be having children. And then, we have to decipher what mental illnesses are acceptable for parents to have and then have their own children, or if they need some sort of arbitrary parenting classes or a pseudo supervisor while they're interacting with their children. This case really scares me for the individuals who are not necessarily incapacitated mentally, but have the ability to have that manipulated against them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, especially fathers. You want to, right
Right.
now there's an epidemic of we need good fathers, fathers need to step up and blah, 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 blah. But we all know, and it has been for our entire lifetimes, that the system itself is rigged against fathers. Women get custody, women get child support. Women are seen as the caring, stable characters of that relationship, even when they're not. And they often have a better support system, parents, siblings, cousins, whatever, than men do. And I think that's a crying shame, and men who actually look for support are seen as weak, lesser, and then they end up not getting custody because of tax reasons, which I think is
Yeah.
also ridiculous. Also, women, we need to grow up.
Yes.
I could never, I cannot imagine withholding my children from their father, no matter what our relationship is like. That is just unfair to the child. I don't, everybody talks about how they want to do what's best for the child, but whenever ask the child how they feel about it, um, I think it's an issue that deserves a conversation and then an action. We know what the problem is. We need to acknowledge
Now,
that's the gist of the conversation. Is that, hey, this is a problem and we're going to fix it.
in this particular case, the woman did say that she had called to report that he had not brought the children home. And this happens quite frequently in child custody cases where a father might
Every
be
animal.
late. Right. Or might have taken the kids somewhere the mother didn't approve, or so on and so forth. And the typical response from the police unit is to turn it over to family court, that separation between the courts. And I think that happened in this particular case as well, where they were like, blew her off until the kids were really gone for beyond their extension of visitation. And
Right.
a lot of people are saying that that may have impacted whether or not they got to them girls too late.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good possibility, but I would think that again, if you're something like this is going to happen, if let's say he is guilty of this, most likely it happened before the time in which they would start to look for them.
I
Um,
agree.
I don't think that anybody would choose to perform under pressure like that. Like, oh, okay, now that they're missing, now I'll act. I think they, can take their time. Um, it doesn't look very well thought out as far as concealment goes. So that's a
I
question.
think that was the point, though. I was just going to ask, do you think that this was done not necessarily as the mental side of his issues, but in a spiteful source? Like, if you're going to accuse me of being crazy, I'll show you crazy, sort of thing.
Could, or it could be a matter of if I can't have them, nobody can. Or I mean, there's a number of reasons, and we have a number of case logs that we can go back and review history about other fathers who have acted in such a manner. Um, this is unfortunately not all that uncommon, but it's not just
Right.
fathers. I want to make that clear.
No.
There are plenty of
Right.
mothers out there that do the same thing. And the women's abuse of the system is what lends to a lot of that being allowed, or being not allowed, but more easily done.
Believed, acceptable,
Yeah, because
the narrative. Hmm.
right, because what happens is when the mama is upset because they went to McDonald's and met his new girlfriend, she calls an Amber because when he's
Right.
5 minutes late and didn't call her, text her back, then it's an Amber Alert. It's a crisis. It goes back to court, and people get fatigued and trying to advocate that things And I think that stems from a lot of abuse from the
Yeah.
women,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
And
her own doing.
and a quickness to believe that, a man could do something before a woman could, or that the man is automatically in the wrong, or whatever the story the woman comes up with
Uh-huh.
is the correct narrative. Um, it does make for very bad case law, especially when instances like this happen. I think that it's really conditioned everybody to automatically assume that, this is how it happened and we know all these things. And I don't know. I'm always the person who looks at reasonable doubt and wants to assume that there's innocence before jumping to a guilty verdict. But let's pause and talk about a little bit about what you're doing. I seen some dough moving around, so looks like we're moving to a new step.
Yeah, what I want to do now is I put this dough out onto a flour surface, well floured. Like I said, it's a very sticky dough, so when you do that, you just basically want to envelop it in some flour, create like a dough ball, like that. Um, you don't have to get all the creases. You're not trying to necessarily need any gluten out of it or anything, so you're not having to do much there. Now I'll just take my rolling pin, flour that up real good, and my hands, and we'll just roll it out into the size pizza crust that I want. My pan is about 16 inches or so, so I'm going to go for
That's a good pizza.
14 inch or so crust so that I have a little lip to grab it. You can put this on a stone. You can put this through. I would put it directly on the rack, but you can line. I line mine with parchment paper on the bottom, but you can use foil or nonstick spray or anything like that. So it takes a minute for it to kind of spread out here. But as I work it around, it's going to come out kind of similar to pie dough at this stage. It's not flaky layers, but it has that same kind of like bounce back. So
nice.
when you roll, you have to kind of continue to press and make it go where you want it to go.
I love working with dough. It's my favorite. It's probably why I worked at 3 different pizza shops.
The Play-Doh era for adults.
Right? Plus, I'm Slovak, so pretty much everything that we cook was made with dough in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
We made a lot of dough.
For this particular recipe, again, I'm making this dough because this is an element that I really like. Cottage cheese dough is high in protein. It's not gluten-free. I mean, you could use gluten-free flour. I haven't tested that. But, you can make it low carb if you use less flour. I can't do that because I'm not that skilled. But if you have the patience to deal with the sticky, go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the protein is where I'm at right now. Just adding that little bit in is a healthier choice. But you could certainly use a pre-made dough, a regular pizza dough, your favorite pizza dough. It doesn't necessarily have to particularly be this recipe.
Right. So I guess the last thing I'm going to do to wrap up the manhunt case is to ask, do you think they're going to find him alive?
No, absolutely not. Just like
I don't think so either.
Traveled cross country, killed his girlfriend, drove her van home, and then they had to, pull him out of the glades. It's going to end up the same way. If this guy ran, it's to settle his own demons. Once those are handled in his mind, he's done. He's not going to surrender and go to jail over this.
We have Howard Bass. We have a Howard Bass in the chat. I don't want to interrupt you, Miss Amanda, but he says that Valerie makes her own pizza crust too, and she freezes it. So there's another option that we haven't talked about. That these recipes are really stable. That they freeze up really nice. They keep really nice. That's a great point.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, I mean, this is like a great recipe for when you have some leftover ingredients you're not sure what you want to do with. If you have the elements, then you want to, take advantage. So what I'm going to do now, I've got this rolled out. I'm going to transfer this if I can. Let's do that.
Oh, hello, Az. We have Azamutu in the chat as well.
Cool.
If I'm getting really close to the camera, guys, I'm trying to read your chat. So I'm so sorry that you're getting like extra super close-ups tonight. It's going to be a fun show. It's never a dull moment around here. So I always, I like to keep it fresh. And thankfully, we have enough snafus that you're never going to get the same show twice around here. That's good.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so you got the dough on your sheet there, and what's next?
So then I've got the oven preheated to 375, and we're just going to pop that in after I shake the egg.
This and that needs that information always. 375 on that temp.
375 for about 20 minutes just to par bake that so that the cottage cheese, which is a very high moisture, will kind of, I don't call it dehydrate, but that's exactly what it's doing. It's letting go of some of the moisture in that so you don't end up with a soggy pizza. You have more of a crusty dough. And on the side note, this dough will make bagels, breadsticks, pretty much anything you want to fold it into. The recipe changes a little bit as far as like cook times and the finishing. Like on bagels, you would do an egg wash over the top of them and put a hole in them with a bagel. But the recipe is all the same. The assembly of it's the same and everything else. So I'm going to get that going. And I'm going to turn these onions off. I don't know if
ooh, those look good.
Brown, translucent, not burnt. And now that I've got them off the heat, the one thing
that's a good idea too.
Yeah, the one thing I did not put in the instructions of part of this was when to add the garlic.
Yeah, I think I forgot the pepper flakes last week and I had to throw them in at the end. I was like, oh, darn, I missed a step.
In this case, I'm using the garlic, which is perfectly acceptable. But if you feel like you want to mince your own, go for it. You're just going to need like a tablespoon. So to me, that's not nearly worth the hassle. Now it's going to be more of a hassle for me to get the lid off of this thing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hassles, now I'm sure you heard about this story too, and I'm not sure if our audience has heard about this one as it is so new, but a Florida boy was found deceased in his home during a welfare check after he didn't show up to school for 2 weeks, and his mother is being charged with his murder. She told the detectives who responded that she was attempting to exorcise the demons out of her son's body. So in this particular case, the woman in question has overloved her son to the extreme and is now facing charges. This is way different than the case that we discussed about the manhunt and the 3 girls, because I believe that the children were kind of lost between the dispute with the parents. In this particular case, I don't even know where to start as far as, is this mental health? Is this a parent who is too involved in their idea of religion, or is this something of an abuse case turned excuse? What do you think about this?
Uh, well, there's definitely some mental health issues going on there. I don't think the boy was possessed, but the mother might have been. And those demons, unfortunately, are still fighting. Um, so, as far as being delusional, I don't necessarily that I can attribute that to a mental health disease as much as I can as we're just relenting to your inner demons. We all have intrusive thoughts about our children, especially postpartum. Not that this woman was postpartum, but that is an example of like you could just get
Right.
insanely mad. I don't know how old this lady is, but they are discovering more about perimenopause, especially women who are still of fertile age but no longer having kids, or magical years between like 35 and 45. That some crazy things go on in our brains. Some
And
women,
the chemicals.
yeah,
Hmm.
some women really do go psychotic and they want to self-harm, they want to harm others. They do things that are, to a detriment. They get hooked on drugs. They become very promiscuous sometimes. And it has a lot of outforms. So I don't know if there's
Yeah.
a case to be made that maybe she was, suffering from some sort of chemical imbalance. Because again, when someone wants to say that they did it at the prompting of God, we all look at them like Son of Sam. I mean, let's be real.
Hmm.
Let's
Hmm.
be real.
Yeah.
So the whole devil made me
I'm
do it
trying.
excuse is not an excuse to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to find her age. They're not commenting on her age, but if I
Yeah.
had to guess, she looks to be about 35, 40. So I would say,
I mean, she's older.
premenopausal, if
Yeah.
that's the case. I mean,
Well, we're in
maybe
that
early
stage.
onset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Because it's like in
early
that stage where
onset.
again you're still fertile, so to speak, but it's
And
kind of sputtering.
she did explicitly say that she was being told by God to basically exorcise demons out of the child's body, and that when the
Mm-hmm.
child stopped moving, that she felt that the demons had been released. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I've never really heard voices per se, but it's just always intriguing to me, like you said, when people invoke their religious beliefs to say that it motivated them to do X, Y, Z.
Right. Well,
Because
it would
a lot
also be
of,
an interesting. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of it is just, so arbitrary to the interpreter that it's almost like, how do you know that that's what you were told to do, so to speak? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Well, yeah, yeah, that's something that I would want to have examined is, are these in fact religious beliefs? How
Right.
religious was she before this?
Right.
We all know, like in the Catholic faith, you don't consult the priest about an exorcism until you feel like you need one. You know what I
Well,
mean? So,
till all
so
other
there.
resources are exhausted.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It could be a matter of if this kid's having behavioral issues, probably maybe mirroring some of her issues right back at her, right? And
Yeah.
then she's thinking this kid's possessed. It could have been planted in her ear. We don't know. But again, was this like her go-to? This was the religion of her upbringing, or was this just something she decided to try because it seemed
Yeah,
like it worked in
because
the movies?
yeah, where would you find the proper ritual? And
Online.
when yeah, because like when you look at the movies, it's fasting, an old priest, a young priest, a special Bible, your special. I'm just going off The Exorcist, obviously,
Right.
but you know, when you hear about things like this, now the autopsy is conducted. They're not releasing any information due to the active status of the case. But I'm wondering if there was some sort of physical blows or some harming done, and how you would explain that. Because if the child were possessed, quote unquote, then she's going to turn around and say that they're self-inflicted wounds, correct?
Oh, yeah. Again, based on what you see in Hollywood, it's not all that far-fetched to think. And we all remember
Right.
Blair, what a psychopath that was. You know.
Right.
So, if you're going to do that for a movie and dramatize that, I mean, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, another example. So, I mean.
And all of them,
unfortunately,
yeah.
we have really bad examples of what a possession or an exorcism looks like. So if you're a novice, you're not a professionally trained person in these areas, how do you know if it's working? It's got to look like what you've seen dramatized.
Right.
And we all have, and again, harkening back to exorcism, Emily Rose, things like that. When the child collapses is when it's over. This house is clean. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then all of the fighting back or self-defense could be the demons fighting or, screaming or whatever. And, it could become a scene. I can only imagine. I think this happened in public housing, if I'm not mistaken. So another thing that really struck me funny about this particular case was that the school called. It wasn't, and it is a house. It's a standalone house, but it's in a neighborhood. There's a welfare request by the school due to, the child not being in class for 2 weeks. And that goes back again to this arbitrary nanny state, the school looking over the parents, how did they know to conduct a welfare check? Now, in this case, it was good. Like the kid was passed on. But what if it was just like, the child was ill and sick and you've now got police knocking at your door because your kid had, measles. Measles are going around again.
Right. Well, yeah, I guarantee the school was missing money. And that's what prompted the follow-up. Then secondly, with the school reporting the child being out, they expect that any communication like measles or chickenpox or vacations or whatever needs to be pre-approved by the school. So
you knew where I was going with this.
Leaving without permission is a no-no. I'm going to turn this blender on. I'm going to mute my microphone because I don't know how loud it's going to be, but it should only be about 20 seconds less.
Yeah, no worries. Go for it. Awesome. Right. And then we'll check back in with your recipe. I'm going to go ahead and tell the people that Ramil Pierre was a student at Samuel Gaines Academy. He had been absent since May 14th, according to St. Lucie County Sheriff Richard Del Toro. The boy's mother, Rhonda Joyce Polynice, led a responding deputy inside to his bedroom, where he was found deceased on the bed. They even said that the woman was kind of shifting her behavior during the interaction and the investigation. She would go from laughing to crying. She was very willing and forthcoming to say, I did this thing and I believe my son to be clean and clear of the demons. And it wasn't boastful, but it was almost like she was, stating what a good mother she was, that she went kind of above and beyond to battle these demons. And I don't know if she really understood the implications that she brought upon herself due to just her behavior on the scene. That leads me to believe she is a little mentally unsound, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There were reports that she was, um, like had like hope that he was okay. It's like, no, that's not the way that works. You know, so there are lots of questions there
Oh,
are answered
100%.
as far as like mens rea and what a normal person would reasonably think in that
So
situation.
even with her declaration, they're only charging her with second-degree murder. This is what I find fascinating about our court system, is how they pick and choose what degree murder charges that they want to facilitate. Now, when it comes to Luigi Mangione, they're going with these terrorist charges and first-degree murder and planning and so on and so forth. Doesn't a implication of a exorcism kind of give you this idea that this was planned, or at least you thought about what you were going to do before you did it? Maybe you didn't necessarily mean to kill, but there is some sort of planning to
Yeah.
this.
Oh, absolutely. There is. Again, I think I agree with you. I don't think anybody goes in with this kind of excuse, thinking that this is going to be the end result. But, I don't know that even a normal person would think that another normal person would even take it that far, right? Like, we all
Right.
like try an exorcism, but not be able to actually like deprive each other. Because again, we don't know the details of death. So we don't know
Right.
exactly what the cause of death was. Did she stab him? Did she just dehydrate him? Was it a lack of food? Was it a lack of medicine? Was the child, did
Right.
he have a chronic issue? Did he have an asthma attack? Who knows? We don't know. So we can't really make
You
a
just brought
judgment
a
on
very
her
good
intent.
point. You brought a very good point to the table. We could get through the course of this and find out that the cause of death wasn't even due to the exorcism, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It could have been a pre-existing condition that the kid was dying and she just didn't recognize that, thought it was demons.
That's what I was thinking.
Kids die all the time. And we don't like to think about that, but they do. And we have to, be a little bit sensitive to that matter as far as judgment goes when we're looking at what happened in the case preliminarily. I can't say it. Preliminarily.
Preliminary.
Yeah.
Howard Bass says ritual planned with intent, and I don't know how you would prove that.
Kill, but to heal.
Yeah,
Heal, not to kill. So I mean,
well, that goes into our especially with charging murders, right? Like, we always try to figure out the intent, and that's what dictates what degree of murder that we're facing. And it seems like it can it can never fall into a nice, neat category. Like, you and I sat down and we made a strategic plan to carry out the assassination of blank. And it's all there. It's written on a nice little, to-do sheet with our names on it. And there's a contract with both of us saying we're in it for the long haul. We're both co-conspirators to this. It's never that easy, right? So we're always trying to go back after the fact and try to figure out why somebody did something. And I don't know, the more that we try to figure out the why, the more I'm disenfranchised with the why. and I just want to punish the act, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right, another little quick food break here, I guess. So I pureed those caramelized onions into a paste with my little
Yay.
bullet guy. I've got beef consomme boiling here. I just cheated. It's from a can, but again, if you made a roast, use its drippings. So I've got it boiling. I've turned the heat down now low because what we're going to do is we're just going to take some of our deli meat, as much as you think you want for your pizza. I'm thinking probably about 4 ounces because this is just one little pizza. We're going to put
Ooh.
that into the juice. This just rounds it up a little bit more and adds a little bit of more flavor to it. This is the same
Ooh,
pot,
that looks
right?
good. Although
Same
it
pot that
also
I
looks like our
caramelized.
connection has been
Uh-oh.
cut. And I don't know if it's on your side or my side. It looks like I'm
I don't
still
know.
here. Looks like you're
I
frozen,
am.
but I don't know. There you are. We're picking up
Alright.
again.
It's lagging. So yeah, just taking these out of the package and I'm just placing them into the liquid, which is no longer boiling but is still hot. That's going to absorb some liquid flavor. So we're just going to do that real quick, let that sit for a second, and then when this pizza crust comes out in 2 minutes, we'll start the milk. So we're going to be done.
Did you take the pizza out of the oven yet or no? I think I missed that
It's
step.
got 52 seconds left.
Oh, okay, good. Good. I didn't miss it
Yeah.
then. I thought I didn't, but so either way, this mother is going to court with a public defender, and I don't see anybody stepping up to defend her.
Yeah, where are the NFL players?
Well, yeah, my next question is, do you think that any pastors will be hopping on that or jumping to her aid?
No, I don't. I know no actual Christian pastor is going to endorse that. I think the Catholic Church won't touch this with a 10-foot pole because it was unauthorized. And the New Apostolic Reformation, which talks a big game and maybe where she got her pointers, is not going to have any accountability because that's not what they do. They don't like accountability.
Right.
So they will say, oh, she did it wrong. Yeah, we told her to do that, but she did it wrong. Okay, so this is just a par-baked crust. It's not completely brown. It's not done. So we'll let that sit while we're letting this meat do. And then I'm going to just kind of submerge it a little bit.
Soak it all up. I can't wait to see what it looks like.
Yeah, it doesn't need very long. Obviously, you don't want it to get too soggy because it's going to go on a pizza. We are going to take it out, take it out of this liquid, and we're going to chop it up to make it more bite-sized for a pizza. So if you were making a sandwich, there would be no reason for doing that. But in this case,
right.
So that's where we are.
So on to our next case. This case is very sad, and I want to spend the most time on it because it really is a separate issue from the two cases that we just spoke about, and it's a much different situation and scenario. And these parents, I want to clarify, are in the exact same boat as the first two. These parents are from North Carolina, and they're being charged with manslaughter after their 7-year-old son was fatally struck by a car. Now, when I first read this, not their car, somebody else's car. Thank you for clarifying, because it's very important that we understand what's happening here. These parents, the more I hear about this story, the more upset I get about it. And I'm probably going to say some things that I shouldn't say on Rumble or YouTube, but we're going to get there. First, the premise of this story. parents of a 7-year-old boy who was fatally struck by a car while trying to cross a street have been charged with manslaughter and remain in jail. Get this, $1.5 million bond. The child was hit by a Jeep Cherokee on May 27th in Gastonia, and he was attempting to cross the street outside of a crosswalk with his 10-year-old brother when the crash occurred. He suffered life-threatening injuries and died at the hospital. His parents, 30 and 31, so they're not children. They're not teenagers. These aren't underage people, are being charged with not only involuntary manslaughter, but felony child neglect and misdemeanor child neglect. The 76-year-old woman who was driving the car is walking away scot-free. She's not getting a single charge. Nothing. No things. Okay. The father was on the phone with the oldest boy when it happened. He dropped the phone and was able to run to his son's side immediately after the accident. And these parents are being charged with neglect. Now, here's the worst part about it, Amanda, and you and I have talked about this with your kids. They were on their very first solo trip home from the store.
Oh, man.
The parents were waiting for these children.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate. And that should be the outcome. We should all cry together, mourn with the mourn.
I am pissed. I'm pissed. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm devastated for the 10-year-old. I'm devastated for his parents. I am devastated for that community. And I know that woman that was driving, this isn't her first accident.
No,
we know this. I know this. You know this. We know this because it just doesn't go like that, right? Like when you get to a certain age, there are certain tells that become that conversation where you have to sit down and talk with your loved one about their capabilities. And I don't believe for a second that the kid was so outside of the crosswalk that she failed to yield in a timely manner.
Absolutely.
I don't believe it.
But again, we don't know the details of this case. Like, was it a car-lined street where everybody parks on both sides of the street? Is it a matter of like he darted out? Again, we're supposed to be defensively driving, especially in cities and things like that, where that kind of thing can happen, adult or child, dog or otherwise. Excuse me. So again, we don't know these kinds of details. I think these things are held from us in order to flame the outrage against the parents, not the woman. Let me put it that way.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to ask questions of, did she have anybody that would have stepped in for her? What kind of job is the DMV doing? And why is
That's
it
a great question.
Why in this country is it a crime now to prosecute the old? We did not prosecute Joe Biden because he was old. Okay.
Yeah.
And we don't prosecute this lady because she's old.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah. That makes me laugh like Tucker Carlson every time.
That is a good line. See, now what really, again, is getting me in this case is the wording that they're using. And this is from the Gastonia Police Department. The children involved were unsupervised at the time the boy stepped into traffic. Listen,
Yeah,
if he
that's a
darted
thing.
out from behind a car, or if he did something that was not safe, why is it stepped into traffic that you went with?
Right. Exactly.
That that doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
He says, in such cases, adults must be held accountable for their responsibilities to ensure a safe environment for their children. Now, that led me
Don't let
to
them
ask.
outside. That's code. That's code for don't let them outside. Because the parent
Well,
could have
that,
been right there, and
that's
it
what I
still
was
would
going
have
to
happened.
say. So if the mother was standing there with him, you wouldn't have charged her with involuntary neglect or involuntary manslaughter if she was standing there. Wouldn't the circumstances have been exactly the same if it was the mother
Exactly.
and not the 10-year-old?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Why are we not charging the 10-year-old?
they would
He's
have
not
had another
old.
reason.
He was there. 10 years old. He should have grabbed the child, right? Why aren't we charging the 10-year-old?
Exactly. Makes you wonder. Because
This case,
that would be seen.
this case this case, just this case alone, you know, you have two parents, and I'll tell you what I think. I think because of the interracial couple is why we're seeing charges. It is
Yeah.
your white woman with your African American man, and
It's the
of course,
prosecutor. That's going to make a
that's a
difference too.
that's a great
You know,
question.
is it
I do not know.
a childless, old, dried up prosecutor?
That's
You
a good
know, like
question. I did not see a
these,
single thing.
these bitter bitches tell you one way or the other, you should have chosen a career. The kids are a problem, they're a liability. They need to make that point these days. You know, they all just
It does.
complain.
It does seem like that's exactly what they're doing. They're going to systematically remove every reason for a average normal American to have children. Period.
Or
And
want to.
while the conservatives are just ragging on about just go have kids, go have kids, go have kids, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, go ahead, have kids and give them a reason to lock you up because that's
Yeah.
all that's all it's
Yeah.
turning into. You can't
Absolutely.
you can't homeschool them. They'll come and take you for truancy. You can't not inoculate them. They'll come take them for being an anti-vaxxer. You can't expect them to have responsible access to technology because then you're not monitoring them. But don't deny them access to technology because then you're depriving them. What is
Right.
it that
Yeah.
parents have to do? What do we have to do? I don't get it.
Run and hide. Run and hide. I don't know. I teach my kids, unfortunately, in this day and age, you know, my parents taught me how to be street smart. I'm doing the same way, you know, as far as like the typical dangers, but I'm also straightforward with them about how the system works and why things are the way they are. And I don't sugarcoat it. And I explain to them, look, you can't have a temper tantrum. This is when they were littler, in the middle of Walmart. Because if you scream out something you know is going to get under my skin, but is also blatantly untrue, nobody else knows that. You scream out, I never get, you never, you always. I tried to discourage them from using those definitives because of the implications. It's like all it takes
And
is for
everybody
you to
takes it
scream out.
verbatim.
Yeah, everybody, you scream out one time, you never feed me. Then all of a
That's
sudden you've got
dangerous.
DCF at your door going, let's check your fridge, ma'am. Does
I was
every
watching
child have a
body cam
bedroom? Do they have
footage.
their own bathroom? How many pairs of pajamas do they have? So, you know.
There was a DFAX complaint filed by a police officer who had conducted a traffic stop on a gentleman and did not like the way that he interacted with him in front of his children. So he called DFAX, and DFAX showed up twice trying to gain unlawful access to the home. And if anybody doubts what Amanda and I say, please go listen to these DFAX employees speak to the parents of these children under investigation, because they speak with absolute certainty that they are not your children, that they are the responsibility of the state, and they are gnawing at the bit to come and take them and punish you for, like you said, Amanda, a dirty house. And we're not talking to the level of health problems. We're talking about, to the standards of the person conducting the interview. Dirty dishes in the sink, neglect. You're going shopping on Friday and they happen to swing by and you have nothing in your refrigerator. You're a bad parent. If you didn't, make the kids' beds, or they don't have toys, or God forbid you have, animals of some sort in the house, they will use it all as evidence against you. It's sad.
Right. It is. And it's scary. Because the most innocent of things can be construed into a malevolent manner.
Right.
So what I've done here is I've spread that onion paste on the crust, shredded that beef, and put it on the crust. Or it's just in the assembling process. If you've ever made pizza, it's kind of self-explanatory. Now, I have Gruyere cheese, which we got from the deli. Melts really nice, tastes really good. You can use whatever you want for a while. Let's not put Parmesan on this thing.
Well, you might be there for a while.
Right. But let's soft cheeses, but Munster, cheddar, whatever floats your boat. You make your French dip how you like it. So again, just think of your traditional sandwich. So you're just going to take slices. In my case, they're slices. If you get shredded, you shred it, whatever. And you're just going to put that all over the place. And then we're going to pop it in the oven for 10 more minutes and it'll be all done.
Sweet. Yeah, just let us see that before it goes in the oven so we can see what it looks like all together before it's cooked.
Yeah. But yeah,
good thing they don't have our address. They'd be beating down our door wanting dinner out there. Oh, that's funny. So yeah, these parents, it's lightning speed. Okay, so this happened on the 27th. They're already scheduled. They're already scheduled for court on the 20th of this month.
Well, the sad thing too is it's also now forever. Let's say they get cleared that they still have a 10-year-old. That 10-year-old's got 8 more years. They'll never get out of the system. They're in it. They're in it for a lifetime of checks and rechecks and evasion and questioning and second guessing and all that goes along with that. Which is also
you've got a really, really good point there. A lot of people don't know either that once these people get into your life, oh, that looks awesome. Very nice. And into the oven it goes. Once these people get into your life, you never get them out. There's no way to satisfy them. And I'm curious to know, what is the ultimate end-all be-all for the state involving themselves in parenting? Like, we're coming down to the end of the show. Your pizza's going to be done. So we've laid out this nasty mess of entanglement between parents, their responsibilities, what the state's responsible for, and la, 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 la. So my question is, at the end of all of this, what does DFACS hope to accomplish? What does the state hope to accomplish as far as parenting goals? What type of children we're raising? And where does this all end?
Yeah, well, I think, originally when all of this started, as far as like child welfare, it was really born out of the rebellious 60s when parents were largely seen as not being able to control their own children because of the
Mm,
hippies.
mm,
And the free love movement, things that were going on. Teen pregnancy went through the roof in the 80s. Again, another signal that parents were not able to control their own children in a fashion that the older generations found suitable. So you got the involvement. Then there are those tragic cases, like as in the exorcism, where some people shouldn't be parents, maybe, and they don't ask for help and they don't have resources on their own faculties. Not that there aren't enough resources, but the state then is propositioned to come up with those solutions. Someone protect the children, And so they get involved. I think initially was an involuntary response to public outcry, like we just can't do it, we don't know what we're doing out here. And then because of power and authority tends to corrupt people, we now see the corrupt system that we have now where they feel like, again, jobs were created, bureaus were created, money's flowing. That's the incentive now to keep it going. They will look for abuse where there is none because their jobs and their funding is on the line. Just like I guarantee you the school is missing some money, and that's why they went looking for the kid. The state will look for kids so that they can generate revenue and say, look at all the good we're doing. All these poor children need our help. Where the community is unfortunately apathetic enough to go, okay, yeah, you're a problem, you do it.
Is it apathy or extreme empathy? I am just to the point where I want to shut off people's empathy buttons. Like,
No,
I
I
can't
think it's
handle it.
it's apathy. It's apathy. That's why we have the abortion culture that we have. We would tell women now that it's easier to relieve the suffering of your unborn baby by killing it than chancing the fact that it might end up in the system. It's apathy. We would rather kill them
Mm,
than to support them. And because the appearance of no support is there, then yeah, nobody's going to do anything. The parents aren't going to step up. No one's going to hold them accountable because they don't have any resources,
See,
and
I have to step on to the other side of that. And I think it's just extreme empathy where everybody feels that their way, they know the right way and their way is the only right way. And they're going to implement it to the detriment of others. And they really
yeah,
do think they're doing good. They really do. And they have, it in their heart that they want to do good. But you know how, like, you have cuteness aggression and you could squeeze a
yeah,
bunny too tight and it dies. That's where I think society is. And it does stem
yeah,
from what I believe is prior apathy, where you said, yeah, like you raised a whole group of people who refuse to participate in the system because they don't like the outcome of it. So now the opposite has happened. Too many people are tuned in that everything affects them so like
yeah.
viscerally.
Well, yeah, and we cannot discount human nature. We love to involve ourselves in business that isn't ours.
Yeah, yeah.
It preoccupies us from our own affairs. And so anytime someone can dig into somebody else's drama, I mean, look at YouTube, look at Facebook, look at what is that other than the guess what I heard about so and so, and here's the update on this. And we're hearing about people's lives and stories that we don't know them. And now we feel entitled to make a judgment upon them. We feel some
Right.
people go crazy and like get super involved and they donate money or they make death threats or they show up in person and it's like
All
what?
the new culture
Yeah,
for the GoFundMe's and stuff. Now, Az is talking
yes.
about how he can't eat carbs, so I might have to do a no carb recipe next week. I did see you, Az, and I do want to address that. So
Okay,
you know,
yeah, we're all on the same page. We've got some no carb stuff coming too because that's me.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we're definitely going to do that. But you know, I agree with you. I think that this type of culture is so I hate to use the colloquial pick me girl phrase because the alpha Gen Alpha is using this language now, but they hit the nail on the head. It's that striving for attention to the point where you latch on to everything and anything and make it about yourself. So
yeah,
the nurse that got fired from TikTok, she's got a GoFundMe. The N word girl, she's got a GoFundMe. All the killers got GoFundMe's. All these, don't want to work kids and TikTok begging is a big thing now. And
yeah.
people are perpetuating it. This is what blows my mind. We've always had beggars, but very rarely did we have successful beggars. That's why they
That's
were
right.
few and far between. Now they're
Right.
everywhere. While
Everywhere.
everybody's still complaining that they have no money, does nobody sees a problem with that but me? You've got all this money to spend on other people, but you don't have money for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? How does that
But you're
happen?
virtuous. You have a cause, right? You're something bigger than yourself, right? Yeah, which is really the root cause of why they want to get involved in other people's
That
business.
has to be it.
Is
That
because
has to be
again,
it.
it is a look what I did. I mean, it's just like the state. If we aren't the ones feeding these hungry children, who will do it?
Yeah.
If the immigrants aren't the ones picking the crops, oh, where will we get workers? They're surrounded by willing and able people, but they're not holding anybody accountable. So, duh, nobody's going to volunteer. But if you really held parents accountable, I mean, I don't mean the state. I mean your like families, the people you know. If you hold them accountable, then they will step up. The normal person, if they're getting off
Well,
if they're going sideways, you can rein them in. But
look at the 30-year-old that was locked up in his home.
yeah,
I'm
that's getting
sorry.
strange.
How? I just can't wait until that all comes out in the wash. But I also,
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think that we've gotten so scared of our own families at this point that we aren't saying what needs to be said for, fear of retaliation, fear of not connecting the bonds, not keeping the bonds, or whatever
right.
with the fabric of the
Losing.
family and la la. But
Yeah, families are already so fractured and so limited
so why
now.
why bother worrying about
So
it? Then just
yeah, you don't want to
speak
lose your
speak the
one and
truth.
only your only family member. I think there's a lot of fear connected with well, I don't have a big family to start with, so I better not alienate myself or I'm out on my own.
We've got to
So
work on that. We've got to
yeah,
work on that. And I see a lot of fracturing in families due to core values being diminished, or, not practicing what you preach, and so on and so forth, or even just the pettiness of not wanting to be associated with somebody due to their political beliefs. But in cases like the ones that we spoke about tonight, you see those families actually becoming stronger through their pain and through their suffering. So, I guess there is something to be said about, going through the fire and coming out a different person on the other side. But I
Mhm.
really wish that we could get these people to stop being afraid to say the right thing, and if it means disassociating with somebody who's not doing what they should be doing, I don't care. Then you shouldn't. We have this big culture of guilt by association in every other aspect of the law and society except for when it comes to scrutinizing our own friend groups or our own family groups. And then we just kind of put those principles off to the side and say, you know what, I'm going to make a pass or I'm going to make an exception, but I won't condone what this stranger does, but I'll let my sister do it or I'll let my mother do it or I'll let my daughter do it. That's got to
Yeah,
stop. The hypocrisy has to stop.
right. Yeah, I agree with you. And so many times we do see things that are out and out, um, not advantageous, not necessarily
Right.
criminal, just not necessarily the way that we would think a normal process would be. And we don't point it out because, different strokes, different folks kind of mentality, even if it is somebody close to us. And again, I don't want it to turn from, well, we have outsiders telling us what to do, and now we have our insiders telling us what to do. But again, I think, maybe even just using uh, you know, the method of introspection, make them think it's their idea, you know, show them, get together and show them a better way, compare notes for real, not Instagram competitions about, that's the other thing too. We have all these celebrity family vlogs and things like that that only put a veneer on family life, and no one ever wants to talk about the nitty gritty,
Yeah, but that's
what
why it's better to
actually
get
is.
those conversations from your family. And I think you made a
Yeah.
good point, right? The state tells us what to do, but when it comes from within, when it comes from the people around you, I think the distinction there to be made is the inclusivity. We're not
Mhm.
we're not stating that you stand back like a mother or like a dictator to the family. You do have to incorporate yourself into those actions, right? Like you're not going to go to your sister's house and tell her you need to potty train that kid. You could go to your sister's house and say, hey, I'm going to take my niece, my nephew, and go to the park, and you're going to hang out with your kids. And all day, when your kids go to the bathroom, her kid goes to the bathroom. And you're not telling her the kid needs potty trained. You're just stepping in and doing it. You're helping. You're being
Right.
involved and doing the right thing. So most normal
Mhm.
people will see that and go, oh, you already started it for me? Cool. Let's keep it rolling when we go home. And that's just a
Yeah.
small little example, but you can elaborate on stuff like that because I hate sounding like a hypocrite too. And I know that it sounds like we just suggested that the state doesn't tell you what to do, that your friends and your family should tell you what to do. And I don't want that to be the takeaway. I want it to
Right.
be a thing where you distinguish the difference between being dictated and being a part of culture, right? There's a
Right.
difference.
Right. Yeah. I think, there's a bit of humbleness involved there too, is that we all need correction, we all need instruction. And
Right.
kids, parenting, none of that comes with a manual. So
Unfortunately. Or maybe
our best bet
fortunately.
yeah. Our best bet is to, be open to every piece of advice or tips and tricks. Don't be afraid to experiment. Um, and then the other thing too is that parenting is not that big of a deal. I know that we put a lot of emphasis on
Oh,
that,
she said a
but
bad
I know
word.
what I'm the lackadaisical parent. Yeah. Um, But yeah, I mean, like being like uber strict, and if you mess this up, it's gonna mess them up, and every little thing is gonna traumatize them for life, and they're gonna have issues. No, no, and no, no. because life is rough, life is disappointing, life is unfair, and the kids when they have a real family that deals with reality, they come out far, far better than the parent who moves mountains to never let Johnny fall down or fixes little Susie's problems before they start. You know, your child should feel uncomfortable, and it is not a sin for your child to fear you. It is not a sin for you to mess up and start over and be like, that didn't work, and we're going to do something different. You know, it's not the end of the world. So again, you know, a lot of people start on a path. Again, kind of harkening back to this exorcism deal. They start on a path and they feel like they have to see it through because they've made that decision. They've gone too far. You've never gone that far, and eventually these children will grow up, and it does get easier. You can't discipline a 3-year-old like you discipline a 17-year-old. So
no, you cannot.
You have to adjust. You can't treat the 3-year-old like he's 17. You can't treat the 17-year-old like he's 3. So you have to make those kind of accommodations. And you have to understand, I mean, look at yourself. How would you want to be treated in this situation? How were you treated in this situation?
And I think that, you know, families do need to realize that parents have the final say over their children. Come hell or high water, everybody has to go along in some form or fashion with the right things that the parents are doing. Now, obviously, I'm not saying starve children, beat children, give them drugs and hurt them and all these things.
Right.
No, the family should step in at that point. That's obviously what we're advocating for. But my thing is the, you know, grandparents that step behind the parents and undermine them, the aunties that do the things that shouldn't be done because they did it to their kids and it was fine. That teaches your, you know, the family structure that there's no respect for that individual in their capacity, in their role as a parent. And it is even more detrimental than the child disrespecting the parent because the child already doesn't know better and needs to be corrected. It's the adults in the room that need to really curb their tongue and their behaviors when it is unnecessary and confusing to the child, in my opinion.
Absolutely. 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 I agree with that.
Well, that looks like that pizza came out. What do we got going on back there?
So let's see if I can get this into a frame. Maybe. Use 2 hands. So we're gonna.
Yeah, don't burn yourself. Oh man, that came out really good. Nice fluffy crust. Oh.
Yeah. So the crust when it's baked is like a soft biscuit kind of consistency, and so it'll absorb the liquid really good, but without being like, it's not chewy and it's not flaky. It's somewhere in between, which is why I really like it because it's so versatile.
Right.
So yeah, that's set up. I just added a little au jus to a bowl for dipping, and it's done.
Woo! Oh, I'm so excited. That sounds so good. I might actually go home and actually have to try that recipe. That recipe looks super easy and it's super yummy. And I just can't wait until you dip it in and see the juices coming off of it. Oh, it's going to look so good. So that's always my favorite part, cutting the pizza.
Right.
So Howard said that parents and kids need community, but it's not safe anymore. And I couldn't agree more with that comment. I did pin it and post it up, but I wanted to talk about that just a little bit because, with all of these crazy parents running around, we know that our children are going to come in contact with them as well. So, on top of all of the things that parents do to their own children, they also create a weird environment for other people's children because they don't exist in a vacuum. So it's kind of
Right.
hard, to let the kids go experience other households when you know that these like really strange odd duck parents are out there. But within reason, I do believe that it is kind of a rite of passage to go experience your weird friend's family, right? Like everybody's
Yeah.
got that weird friend.
Right.
I was
Again,
probably that weird friend
that's
for a lot of people.
a learning experience too. That not every situation is going to be comfortable, and you need to know what warning flags to look out for to know when it's time to leave. If you never let your children be exposed to that kind of danger, they never know when to leave, and they could
That's
get
right.
killed. There was a gentleman who was making some noise at the mall. He was just being loud. My girls and I were
Mm.
sitting at the food court. I said, "It's time to go. It is time to get up and leave the mall." "Oh, but we're not done eating." I was like, "I don't care. It's time to go. You see this guy acting the fool? We're not staying to find out what happens."
Nope. We can read about it later. They will
Yeah,
they will definitely keep
right.
us involved, informed.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, it can come down to maybe nothing happened, but that's the clue. That's the indicator that it's time to go. When you're out at a restaurant and you see the guy stumbling away from the bar, point him out. Say,
Yes.
that dude got overserved. That, you know,
Yeah, to
point
say
it
the
out to your
least.
kids. What you observe, and you're like, "Oh no, he'll traumatize the children." They can take it, believe me. They see much, much worse at school,
They
at
hear worse.
church, on TV, the internet. They're not insulated. So if you're not the one pointing it out, you're leaving them to figure it out on their own, to figure out who's drunk and who's just having a problem. You know? And you don't
Oh
want that.
yeah.
You don't want to leave that to the 8-year-old to decide. Is he drunk or is he diabetic? You know.
Mm. Yeah, cops can't even
So
figure that out.
right, here's our pizza. We're gonna dip that in some
Ooh.
liquid. And we'll take a little test bite. Oh yeah. Of course it's good. I made it. Mm. So I don't know where you went.
Yeah, I don't know where I went either. Apparently, Rumble is being Rumble, and today
It
they're not
says you're
even
done.
waiting for. Yeah, they're not even waiting for us to be done. They're just gonna kick us out. So I guess on
Oh,
that note, while you can still hear me and see Miss Amanda, hopefully we didn't lose everybody because I apparently I lost all the chats. I lost everything. We're
oh
gonna
no.
call it a night. And I
Yeah.
really hope that everybody enjoyed this rough, rocky stream. For the people that don't know, I am not home. I am in Dalton, Georgia, waiting the Georgia Republican convention tomorrow and Saturday, where we will be having many guests. I'm super excited. There's a rumor that maybe, possibly, Trump will be there. Maybe, possibly. Don't
Ooh.
know just yet. But I do know that the victory dinner is being hosted by Steve Bannon. So I will be having lunch with Marjorie Taylor Greene and then dinner with Steve Bannon. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I am excited for you. I hope everything goes well. Get in their ears and set them straight.
That's the goal, right? Let's get it
Right.
going and get it started. And for everybody else, I am going to try to do a little bit of recording while I'm there. I don't know what this is all about yet or what I'm going to be allowed to do or not do. So I'm not promising anything, but I'm hoping that I can get a little bit of footage from the inside for everybody, sneak peeks and all that jazz.
Yay!
So,
Yeah.
on that note, thank you to everybody on YouTube, on Rumble, and of course, Miss Amanda's husband, who is always out there watching, my husband, who is always out there watching. Thank you for providing us with the kitchens to do this lovely talk show that we have going on. You guys reap the benefits. Trust. At the end of the day, they get all the benefits because they get that super yummy, delicious food. So, but
That's right.
Let's go ahead and can it out of here, Miss Amanda, and we'll be back next Thursday with a new recipe and a new chat. So we hope to see y'all there.
Bye.
Bye.